had such a great BodyBright session this week, and I want to share about it. One of the things we talked about this week is how we need to have deeper questions for our health. Did you know that 90% of our healthcare spending in the United States goes towards treating chronic disease and mental health conditions? 90% is going towards chronic disease and mental health conditions. So why do so many of us still feel so bad? We feel tired, inflamed, stressed, overweight, or simply not our best. Maybe the question isn't just how we live longer. Maybe we need to start asking a better question. Maybe the better question is, how do we individually and collectively live better quality of life? That's one of the concepts that Heidi taught us this week in BodyBright. She talked about the difference between lifespan and healthspan. She said that lifespan is how long we live. So do we live to 70, 80, 90, 100? And then she talked about healthspan. And healthspan is how long you live with energy, purpose, mobility, clarity, and quality of life. And most of us want both. We want lifespan. We want to live well into our grandkids, great-grandkids, and we also want to live with quality of life. And one of my favorite parts of the evening with Heidi is when she started talking about tools that help us know more about our body and our body's makeup, and specifically around targeted blood work and genetic testing. And I want to share a story. The first time I sat down with Heidi in her office, I had already done my genetic testing, and she had already read it. So she was familiar with what it said. And I sat down and we did the format, hi, how are you? And I had just kind of started getting to know her, but I had such respect for her, knowing what I knew. And so I sat down, and like so many of us, I was a little scared to get my genetic testing. I really didn't know what it was going to tell me. And I sat down in the chair, and she looked at me, and she asked me a very targeted question. It was the first question she asked. She said, she looked at my genetic testing, she looked at me, she looked at my genetic testing, and she said, "Deanna, has your family or you struggled with alcohol?" And I paused. And I looked at her and I said, yes. Alcohol sent me off the rails in my life, and 15 years ago I got sober. She did not know that. But what she shared with me on the genetic testing was interesting. She said that the marker that she saw was hard for me to outrun. And I thought to myself, in that moment, what valuable information for someone to have, the sooner the better. And so I took that information and obviously started to trust her immediately. And we dug deeper, and she shared more about my genetic testing, and she shared information that I had been living with. And so she shared what was on the screen, and she was explaining what I had dealt with throughout my life, struggles and really opportunities. And what I love that Heidi continues to say, and she shared with the BodyBright community, she said, genetics is not your fate. It's information for you to be proactive around what your genetic testing is saying. And so we went farther in that session, my private session with Heidi. We looked at more information around what I gave her, and she helped me to identify supplementation opportunities, nutrition opportunities, what my body was telling her as far as what it liked on workouts. And it's interesting because I've fought against that, and she is right. And she shared information around what was best for my workout routine. Information that made sense to me, because our body talks to us, and a lot of times we ignore it. But what she was doing is kind of deep diving into things that my body was definitely telling me year after year, and she was explaining it from a genetics perspective. I was so happy to have her come and share her knowledge, information, and really her passion around health and wellness and helping you be a better advocate for your health with the BodyBright community. And it was so fun. She shared information, she shared what panels to ask for and why, because our goal isn't to live longer. Our goal is to live better. And with this information and these tools, we can live better with more knowledge and more empowering steps to be able to customize our plan. Lifespan is how long you live. Healthspan is how long you live with energy, purpose, mobility, clarity, and quality of life. And most of us want both. We want lifespan and healthspan. And in that moment when she asked me that question, I realized this wasn't a personality test. This wasn't a trendy assessment. This was real science. That one question immediately built trust for me. Then she walked me through some of my blood work and helped me understand things no one else had ever explained before. Not just what the numbers were, but what they meant and how they connected to how I felt and how I feel. And this week, Heidi gave our BodyBright group specific tools and understanding, but more than anything, permission for us to become curious about our own health. Because the goal is not to add more years. The goal is to add years to our life. Thank you, Heidi, for sharing your knowledge with us and helping us realize that sometimes the next step in our journey is to just ask better questions. And if you were there with Heidi, I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway. And if you weren't there, I'd love to ask you, have you ever been told that your blood work is normal, but you haven't felt normal? I'd love to hear your story. Comment below.